Hi, everybody. Okay, it's very late, but can't be helped. Um, you have to come to Find Richard Halliday Facebook page for the real news, don't you? I mean, that's what it seems like, and we're working very, very hard to put it all together for everybody. And we're not monetized, and so we don't have to really answer to anybody that's uh, financing us or anything because nobody is. Nobody is. This is all for the love of our country and our son, for our son. And it is the vicious negotiations for our sons, the repatriation of our sons' remains that are in Mexico. Um, so we want our sons' remains. This is a U.S. Army soldier. We want our son's remains. He was stolen off of Fort Bliss and trafficked to Mexico, to Juarez. Evidence indicates to a place called Plenitude Crematorium. The owners live in the United States. They live in the United States, so they have access to visas, right? They have access to visas. And who gave them that? And who's protecting them? You know, um, and why did this happen? Because our son was a whistleblower. A whistleblower. He's the key. He is the key that unlocked all of this pipeline cartel mess. This El Paso Mormon faction cartel alliance with the Mexican cartels, with Iran, with China, um, absolutely an alliance with the Mexican cartels to give them access to what? To visas, to come into our country, to come into our military. This El Paso Mormon faction cartel has access to our military. They have access to our bases. They have access to our FBI. They have access to our CIA. They have access to our government agencies and institutions. They have access and give that access to the Mexican cartel, to our intelligence databases, right? So that they can see what cases are being investigated, what um, you know, who are the informants, who are the agents that are investigating on that case, who are the witnesses. They gave the Mexican cartel that kind of access. And Connell Wetton, being part of the El Paso Mormon faction cartel, leaked our son's identification to the Mexican cartel. Okay, and this was not all of a sudden. This happened over years and years, and of course they had infiltrated in our military and in the DOD, right? The um, like Thomas Kane. We've been telling everybody these names. You have Ann Ogle of the CYS, the Child Youth Services, right? You have the Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Kane, absolutely both part of this El Paso Mormon faction cartel that allow the infiltration of our agencies and institutions and access to our intelligence databases, giving them visas and giving them privileges to run companies without any licenses or permits, um, outside of our laws. Why? Because a lot of those businesses are used for money laundering. Um, uh, in this big um, criminal trafficking network, pipeline. And that main hub of the pipeline um, was, and I'm making sure I'm on, thank you, of course, was the Jeffrey Epstein Zorro Ranch down through Mexico over to Cuba, um, to um, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, St. Thomas. St. Thomas is important because that's where the airfield is, right? The landing strip to land there to then take a helicopter or boat over to um, Little St. James. And then, of course, you have Venezuela for that was siphoning fuel, a lot of fuel. And then you have, of course, Brazil. And this is complicated, but Brazil is where John of God, right? The Brazilian John of God, who today, and let me put it up because it's so important. Um, today, John of God, was sentenced to 489 years in prison. Okay, 489 years in prison um, for multiple counts of, you read it there, and this here, and having baby farms, right? He had baby farms. Um, this is, and this was being promoted by Oprah. Oprah looks pretty bad right now. She looks like a skeleton. She's very, very thin. And this is not how she runs. She doesn't run very, very thin. That's not her normal type, body type, right? She's looking very, very bad right now. And she should, because her connections with this Jeffrey Epstein, John of God pipeline is absolutely, it's so bad with Santa Fe, right? Um, so, and I've posted all about that, and I'm going to keep posting. I'm going to keep posting. But don't forget, one of the things today, I didn't watch the whole thing. The days go by so fast. But I did watch a little bit of the Candace Owens presentation. I'll try to watch it entirely as soon as I get a chance. But the beginning of it, she absolutely hit the nail on the head that this is an occult. This is not a Jewish religion. This is not a Christian religion. This is an occult. This is absolutely a satanic cult. And you have right here, this is Patrick Crucius's father. And I will play you a little video of him. Maybe I can do it. I think I have it right here. Yeah, let's watch this. I'll turn this on.
Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Brian Crucius. So I want to provide you with resources to help you completely accept yourself for who you are. The bottom line is there's not enough self-acceptance. You're constantly fighting to be somebody else that you're not. Now, why is that? Because you have patterns from childhood that your parents, probably good-naturedly or not, put them into you, and you believe them wholeheartedly, just downloaded them because that's what you need to do to survive. Now, to overcome those is to be healthy, because if you believe in a lot of things that are not true, that you just assume are true because you were told that by your caretakers, your friends, school, whatever, then it's going to be very difficult for you to overcome anything in your path to health.
I don't know how much more evil you can get than that. Um, it's just it's so evil because he is making people doubt the people that have raised them, right? Yeah, and I understand it's every family's different, but he was absolutely up to no good because his son um, is a defendant in the Walmart mass shooting, right? The mass shooting, right? Um, very creepy, very, very creepy. And I think that Candace Owens hit the nail on the head with this occult. And also, what she did last week was about the mass shootings. The mass shootings, there's something to them. There seems to be, that they are false flags, that they are used politically, that they are formed and fabricated with a false narrative, that they are very violent but covered up and used for a certain political or maybe to mow the lawn, as she said today. Um, but that is we know that in the Walmart mass shooting case, which we know a lot about, that it was a staged crime scene, that there was a false narrative that was put out to the public about it, that that false narrative was political, that it was to tamper with the election, that it was targeting and attacking President Trump to push Beto O'Rourke. It also had political intention to for um, arms control or weapons control, to hurt the Second Amendment, right? They wanted to, because Ernest Christopher Grant, they were all pushing gun control and stuff like that, and he, I suspect him to be a very, very crisis actor that that was there. And I think the whole story with him needs to be investigated because there's something that's not right there. And what he was doing was so evil and so criminal. Um, and they turn him into to be a media sweetheart. So anyone that's a media turned into be a media sweetheart up to no good, yeah, I think they're really, really up to no good. And most likely, I wouldn't even doubt it if he was part of this El Paso Mormon faction cartel. Do you have to be Mormon to be part of it? No, you don't, because look at the Mayellas. Look at the Mayellas. Um, and maybe it's because of this occult, right? That it has a loyalty that is infiltrating all the different institutions of our society. And, because the Mayellas, they were being protected, and they were the family of um, Brian Crucius, Patrick Crucius, their family, their close family. So, when they have grandchildren, they'll come together and meet with, that, oh, that even scares me. That scares me. Um, so, and here they are in the El Paso Federal Courthouse. They're in the DA's office. They're at the FBI's cyber technician hackers. They're in the Walmart cybersecurity. They're in the psychology, mental health. They're in the Texas Tech University Health Science Center. Um, these are established, they're in finance, right? They're in investment finance. this is a very established family in El Paso, and the narrative was that Patrick Crucius just had no connection at all to El Paso and just randomly picked it, and that he was a hater of people. He wasn't. He was uh, he was autistic. He is autistic, and he's serving 90 life sentences. Um, but there are shooters out at large out there because we have the likes of Juan Torres, known as JT, the Texas Ranger, that absolutely said that the crime scene was staged. And then we have Julio Cordero, who, before his life was taken, said no way. And he was the Poison Ponds legendary FBI agent, the most decorated FBI agent in El Paso history. And he absolutely said and confirmed that no way could Patrick Crucius carry on this mass shooting on his own. No way. He couldn't do it. So, and we agree because of our recordings from Joe Spencer, because of all the evidence that has come out that we've put together. And I really suggest that this is what Candace Owens really focuses on, because I think that these mass shootings have really misled us and have done uh, just great, great harm to our politics, to our societies, it's just, it really is terrible because she is rightfully focusing on who took Charlie Kirk's life, just like we have laser focused on investigating who took our son's life and what all happened. And we've been doing this for almost 6 years. And she's been doing this with a team. She has much more resources than we do. And she has really corroborated what we knew the day of the shooting. Okay, not even the shooting, the day that Charlie Kirk lost his life. Okay, because that day just it just took I don't know, not even an hour, and I and our family said, "Oh my gosh, this is again the Mormon faction cartel, the El Paso Mormon faction cartel." And don't forget that we had attempts on President Trump's life. Um, how would you like it? A bullet coming past your face, coming, nipping, getting your ear, right? Hitting you in the head. How would you like? I mean, that can shake you up. That can shake you up, and that can even change you. And I think it did change President Trump. And I don't think he forgot it. And but when that happened, both times, in Pennsylvania and in Florida, and we dove in a little deeper with those two. We absolutely, evidence indicates this is absolutely part of the El Paso Mormon faction cartel. Okay, that attempted to take President Trump's life. And I think that people forget that there were attempts on his life. I think people forget that. Um, and so when I was listening to a good chunk of what she had to say, I think she was right on at the beginning. But then she I don't know. I think She let her emotions, this is a hard business. You can't let your emotions get the best of you. You can't let your emotions do it. And she cared deeply for Charlie Kirk, and she wants answers um, the way that we think that answers are got. And that's through our FBI and our police department and our CIA and our judicial system and our DA offices. But I have a huge message for her. And I'm sure she knows this, but it's hard to accept it that they have been infiltrated, that they are not functioning. They function by taking our tax money, but they're not functioning. And the CIA, the military, y'all, the military, let me tell you, the few times that I just really, because every day you have to shed tears. That's why I'm saying you can't let your emotions get the best of you. And I remember Sammy C saying, "I know you cry sometimes about Richard." I said, "No, you don't understand. I cry every day. Every day. My heart is so broken." Um, and it's so broken for our country because our military, and I'm not saying every soldier, sailor, and airman and marine. I'm saying the leadership, it is enough. It is enough infiltrated that they control it. And for President Trump to come in was just a miracle. And coming in, can you imagine, to a mutinous FBI, a mutinous CIA, a mutinous Department of Justice, a mutinous military, army, a mutinous Air Force, a mutinous Marines, they're mutinous. And if you are, trying to abide by your oath, if you're trying to investigate, my goodness, the retaliation is so severe. Look at what happened to Charlie Kirk. Look at what happened to our son. The retaliation is so severe. And when President Trump was running this time around and saying, you know, I don't think we'll have a country. If I don't win, we're not going to have a country. And he was not over exaggerating. And he has to be the cheerleader, right? He has to be the cheerleader um for our institutions and our country. Um but he absolutely knew what he was getting himself into. He was going into the den of lions, of vipers, the snakes. The snakes are all around him, and and they bite. They bite. And for anyone to think that this is not about negotiations, that this is not about dodging the vipers, or recovering from a bite, or dealing with the bite, you know, um, I just don't think they're living in reality, because he's in not only the vicious negotiations for the repatriation of our son's remains, which he is, but also for Charlie Kirk. What happened to Charlie Kirk was not a Walmart mass shooting orchestration preparation, okay? Because clearly what we know about the Walmart mass shooting orchestration preparation, it wasn't really thought out very well. And that's why we have found so much evidence, because it was a rush job. But what happened to Charlie Kirk was not a rush job. They had been preparing for that for years. Absolutely for years. And it's amazing that President Trump is alive right now, because we're dealing with the occult. Look at there. The occult. And these are human flesh eaters. These are human flesh eaters. And human flesh peddlers. This is the Ukrainian guy. They wanted corpses. He was buying corpses. Why? For his occult. This is not me making it up. He wanted to drain the fluid so that he could put it into his dolls for his chest of the dead. We're dealing with something that, well, is very dark. And to say, why did that investigation go right? Why didn't Kash Patel do this? Why didn't Bondi do this? I don't have the answers, because we're talking about spiritual warfare. But I can tell you that President Trump is doing more than what's humanly possible. I can tell you that, because the attack of Richard was really about Trump, because Richard was the whistleblower. He was the corroborating whistleblower for President Trump's pipeline arrests that were going on when Jeffrey Epstein was arrested, when El Chapo was arrested. El Chapo, that was a big deal, the Sinaloa cartel leader. When John of God was arrested, that was a big deal. And look at Balasaros, he was the former, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he was the former president of Brazil. He's in prison right now. He's a friend of President Trump. His son is always pleading and asking for help for his father. And before that, he was poisoned. I mean, to get the arrest of John of God was huge, huge. To get the arrest of Jeffrey Epstein, when, look at what I reported yesterday, New Mexico, he had so much support that the New Mexico Department of Public Safety, who are a danger to public safety, did not even require Jeffrey Epstein, after he had been convicted of the worst type of crimes against children, to have to register as a sex offender. I mean, that is, that's what's going on here. So to think of an investigation into the death of Charlie Kirk is normal, would be normal, would be through our agencies and our institutions, is really hoping for too much. It really is at this point, as we are, and that's why what Candace Owen, and this is my opinion, what Candace Owens has been doing has been amazing, amazing, because so many other people that care about justice, establishing justice, and that's our great commission, to establish righteousness, the good news, justice on earth as it is in heaven. That's our great commission as Christians. And for the people to care about justice and doing what is right and get the answers. There's so many that have done amazing work, and so many that have tried to hijack the whole thing and put out false narratives and that, and we see it pretty clearly because we've been going through it for so long in our son's case, to see these infiltrators and the way they sabotage and hijack and try to twist things and attack Candace Owens and anybody else that was looking in closely and asking very important questions. So she's really done the investigation with all of these people that took her lead because she has those resources and she has the platform to get the message out. It's been amazing. She's done in a very short time what we've had to stretch out because but we've done, I mean, it's just absolutely jaw-dropping what we have accomplished in our son's case. Just jaw there, and there's no explanation except for not by might, not by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord God Almighty. That's what explains this. And so we are absolutely wearing the hat, and wanting to make America great again, make America great again, establish justice. And she's saying the cult like since the Civil War, right? Yeah. So let's make America great again. Let's go through what we need to do to have just courts, because our courts are right now infiltrated. Our DA's office, we have Montoya, James Montoya in El Paso. He's a fake and a fraud. A fake and a fraud. He's not even installed properly. And look, he just fired his assistant district attorney, Cuellar, for calling him out on his fraud and fake and his unlawful conduct, right? So, you know, uh, and you have these 5 justices, and my husband was like, "You need to get those names out and just list them off every time." I'm like, "Yeah," that are in the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. Not one of them is legitimate. Not a one. Because in 2015, that court um, got full countywide jurisdiction over El Paso. When that happened, everything changed. And the judges that sit on that court must be elected according to the Texas Constitution. It didn't happen. They want this El Paso Mormon faction cartel in alliance with the Mexican cartels and Iran and Mexico, which were laying out, but I can say it now. Um, it, you know, they didn't want it. They want to control the courts. They want to appoint who they want without letting the people vote. This is a disenfranchisement of the people of El Paso, of their vote. These appointed judges are illegitimate. They are imposters, just like James Montoya. And, and I haven't looked into it, but I'm sure that Candace Owens' team has. Um, who in Utah was over the whole um, Charlie Kirk's case? Was the um, was the medical examiner illegal? Because in El Paso, he's illegal. He's illegally in this country. He's not even qualified for the position. So you've got a broken medical examiner position, a broken DA position, a broken criminal law magistrate court. Every last judge on that court broken. Then you had a El Paso police, El Paso ISD police chief that was broken, but now he's been forced into retirement. Praise God. Praise God. And he needs to be held accountable because he is absolutely, his associates targeted Richard before Richard had his life taken. With Bob Moore's associates, they have the same associates, and they got together and targeted Richard before. And Richards has a sparkling clean record. Any of this talk that he doesn't have a sparkling clean record, they're liars. They're liars. He has a sparkling clean record. Go check it out. They wanted to, and were trying to do everything with their little Mormon faction cartel group to discredit Richard. They tried, but it didn't work. And that's why we have the letter behind us from President Trump, right there behind my shoulder. That is absolutely the most. He didn't have to write it like that, but he knows Richard. And he knows that Richard was the key. And Richard absolutely in the line of duty was and is a hero, a total hero, whose name is indelible and worthy of the honor of every American. I have some comments here. Let me go to that. Hello, good to see you. From Gilbert Glenn Jr., Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you so much. Was the Walmart shutdown during Operation Jade Helm? That's a no, I don't think so. Why didn't they? They wanted to put a narrative out there about Richard. And the thing that happened is that Vanessa Guillen happened. Vanessa Guillen. And that case, I don't believe, is a solved case. She was at just right before Richard, right during the time of Glenn and Oakley Jr. She was brutally, oh gosh, she was brutally killed in the arms room. Like Richard, that's the go-to room because it's a soundproof room. And they had to do what they needed to do to put her in a Pelican case and put her in the back of a vehicle and take her out to the Leon River. And I know that area because I grew up in that area. My alma mater is Mary Hardin Baylor. Um, I went to Temple High School. I was born in White Sands Missile Range. I'm on White Sands Missile Range. Went to school in El Paso and then moved over to, I went to eighth grade in El Paso. I went to MacArthur. I went to, yeah, um, Bassett. I went to Bassett. I swam with Coach Johnson. Coach Johnson was my swim coach there at Replica Olympic sized swimming pool right there on Bliss. Um, so I know El Paso really well. And, but I went to high school in Temple, Texas. And so I know that area too. And I met my husband while I was teaching school in Killeen, Texas, which is, the Fort Hood. He was stationed at Fort Hood. So we know that area really well. I watered skied on Belton Lake, went fishing on Belton Lake, jumped the cliffs of Belton Lake, swam in Belton Lake. Uh, yeah, and the Leon River, not far from that. That is where they took Vanessa Guillen's body and they dug a foxhole and they burned her. And I just have to be, it never gets easy because of what they did to her. And they covered her with lime. They covered her with cement and dirt, and they thought we're good. We're good. And the end of June, the very end of June, animals. God sent some animals, y'all. And they started digging around the concrete. And linemen saw the animals and they found her remains. So from April to the beginning of July, um, they they made the public statement that that was Vanessa Guillen's remains. The very beginning of July, and that month, Richard's life was taken, and they stole his body. They were not, because look, everything went crazy when they found Vanessa Guillen's body. And this Vanessa Guillen's general was General Garrett, Michael Garrett. Okay, same general as Richards, the FORSCOM general. Okay, the CID lead, the CID general, Donna Martin. Y'all, these people need to face the death penalty. They really do. Same ones. And the violations are enormous. Enormous. And there's so much I could tell you about what happened during that time. But they stole Richard's body off of Fort Bliss and they trafficked him to Juarez, to another country. International. Richards is an international case. and which really exposed, they meant it for a cover up, but God meant it to reveal, because it revealed the Purchase Ariano Quran family and their connections with the El Paso Mormon faction cartel. It exposed everything because of the Argo oil and gas and the Cano steel and all the LLCs, and not having to be registered, not having to have licenses, not having to have permits, um, being a protection, uh, um, the whole mortuary affairs, the whole funeral, flesh peddling, the organ harvesting of La Diabla, um, the the babies being sold on the black market. I mean, it just has revealed so much, so much. And they meant it. They thought, okay, we can just cover it up. Um, 400 bodies, 400 bodies at the Plenitude Crematorium when they walked in that place in rat infested, filthy, disgusting conditions. And they still have not identified all of them. It's even Scheinbaum in this humanitarian crisis did not even address it. Because you know why? Because Richard's remains are there. A U.S. Army soldier, Maru Campos. She's not demanding that every last one of those bodies are identified and putting pressure on them. It's the people. It's the people that are doing it. It's you and me sharing and forcing this story out there that is doing it. It's not Cesar Hargi. It's not Carlos Manuel Salas, who is totally illegal too because he's the prosecutor over there. He should be pushing this. But he is so compromised because he has a house, he has access, he just his Mercedes S class. He just had it re-registered there in El Paso. He has a Texas driver's license, everything. This is so against the law in Mexico. If you are an attorney general for the North Zone in Chihuahua, you're a prosecutor, you cannot hold a residency in a foreign country. And he does. And they really work outside of the government because the way they make their money is all this money laundering. They don't want to register. They don't want to. I mean, he's registered to live there, right? Because he wants a driver's license and he wants to vote. He wants to vote. Um, it's crazy. And we had such a great day today and I didn't even post it. Did I post about it? I think I did. About Arizona, right? About Arizona, I think I did. Um, just incredible, yeah. That the FBI seized Arizona election records. Um, awesome, because this is all about controlling the elections so they can control the candidates, so they can control who's in these positions, so that they can control justice. And so elections are very, very important. We need to have free and fair elections. This will take away so much of their power. President Trump is absolutely right, and he's hitting them hard on that. If he was part of them, he would not be hitting hard on it. And he is absolutely hammering the whole cartel pipeline. I mean, hammering them. And are they putting up a fight? Of course they're going to put up a fight. But from Ecuador, he just hit Ecuador. He just hit Peru. Mexico, he's just been hitting left and right. And he's got El Mencho, and he's got the logbooks, and he's got the ledgers. And 5 days after he got the ledgers and the law and the logbooks, he's like, okay, now we're going to Iran, because now I have evidence that Iran was funneling the drugs, the fentanyl, maybe in that ship called Epic St. Thomas. Um, Gas Noble, right? Gas Noble. It changed its name. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. What was St. Thomas then? Was that like the drug stop or whatever? Um, so China, which we know from the first administration, and we know from this Cassandra, I think it was some report. Um, Gosh, it's 2:30 in the morning. Um, Let me open this because it has some notes in it. Yeah, this is about Nadal Baim. And it yeah, the Project Cassandra. Yeah, ooh, I got it right. Project Cassandra absolutely documented that the cocaine was coming through Iran into Central America, right? And making its way up to the United States. And now we have the F drug. And if you look at the map, and maybe I'll put this on so you can look at the map that goes with it. Um, that's Kuwait right there. That's Kuwait. That's where, yeah, that is a real hot spot, y'all. That's where we have our base. Here's the trader, Michael Xavier Garrett. Yeah, there is Nadal Baim, who's very, very, very familiar with Kuwait. Very. He just tried to. He bought like a one-way ticket. He wanted to go back there. He wanted to go back there because he's very familiar with Kuwait. And that look at where it's right beside Iran, right there, right there, right where you can just get those ships, right? I don't know if that ship is called Epic St. Thomas. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it is. I think it's has a new name. Um, but yeah, so here's Dallas Hart, Richard's platoon leader. He's a prime suspect. And there he is, the lieutenant colonel in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM. You've got a father-in-law that is, has a record for terroristic threats, um, goes into a Dollar General and says that Richard is not alive, and gives details, right? Is familiar with Kuwait, has a bunch of car dealerships that he rotates, and absolutely we've confirmed it that he's involved in tax evasion. Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, involved in tax evasion with that. And he's the father-in-law of G3 Lieutenant Colonel that has a very important role. Look, where is he at? He's right there at Camp Arafajan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. In Kuwait, military army base in Kuwait, right there, right there. And we know for a fact that Michael Garrett is dirty and a traitor. We know it for a fact. We know it for a fact that Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado is dirty and a traitor. We know for a fact that Baim is dirty and a traitor. We know for a fact that Dallas Hart is dirty and a traitor. We know his mama is dirty and a traitor. We know it for a fact. This is not like us guessing anymore. This is hard evidence. I mean, and then more hard evidence, and then more hard evidence. So you've got to keep your temperament, you've got to keep your emotions in check, and you have to file, 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 file. And you have to absolutely be your own investigator, your own media. And thank God we have social media. Thank God. So, and you have to file. So we are in really the vicious negotiations for our son's remains because we have the official designation of killed on Fort Bliss in the line of duty, um, which means there was a perpetrator. So this is getting back his remains and also accountability. And, God has it all in his hands. I'm telling you, this whole thing with Cuellar, with James Montoya, that is just like so shocking. That is so dramatic. Um, but Montoya, he fired him. He fired him. And we'll post on that tomorrow. But it is really, we're getting there. But this is amazing, amazing information. And I just want to say that President Trump is the only president, really, that has attempted this huge take back of the United States and to get accountability for Charlie Kirk. For anybody to say that he didn't care about Charlie Kirk um, is just not understanding what's going on, because he absolutely cared for Charlie Kirk and for the former president of Brazil, and for our son, and for our son, because he designated the cartel's FTOs day one, day four, January 24th. We received the in the line of duty designation for our son. Huge, huge legal um, ramifications for that. If he was trying to cover up, he would never have done that, because we already had the declaration of death on April 24th, 2024, because the evidence was so overwhelming for the Army Board of Inquiry. But President Trump stepped it up, and he didn't have to, and he did. It shined a light on Richard. It shined a light on him. And I want to thank everyone for sharing all of that. So, um, no, why did the U.S. go after Iran? I Well, yes, there's loads of reasons, loads of reasons. There's banking reasons. There is the drug cartel. There is also the infiltration, because we know from the Dominican Republic that they were doing pay for play when it comes to visas, that you can go through Turkey, like Iran, really bringing people over through China, through Turkey and giving them visas to come into the United States to get really close. And that's a lot of things are happening with that. Like they're giving a 180-day visa. It has to do with visas, y'all. Visas, because this is giving them legal access into the country illegally, right? So it's going to be, um, what do you do? You have to be really choosy on who you let into the country then. And you don't want to stop totally because in all of this, you have to think that the economy has to be juggled because this has been going on for so long. There's so many people that depend on this military contract um, economy that has developed around this. Uh, you know, you don't want to crash the United States. So that's why he's been focusing so much on getting investments into the country because he knows as he goes after the cartels, people need an option of where to work, how to make a living. They've been making a living off of trafficking. And there needs to be a real economy to be an option to go to. So uh, it's and you have very bad actors in there that block, and you see what Congress has done. They have absolutely tried to sabotage President Trump left and right. But he is a negotiator, and um, and if they had anything on him, like with the terrible things that we have on other people, and the occult activity from other people, they would have already revealed that with Biden because they had the protection with Biden. They could absolutely do whatever they wanted to President Trump during that time, and they were. But they weren't bringing out those kind of accusations. So, and if they could, they would have. If they could, they would have. There's no doubt in my mind because they're just that desperate to stop President Trump. And so it's really blessing. And we'll see how I don't think it's going to be perfect because of all the mutiny and all the deals around because it's not just the United States that is infiltrated, right? It's Europe that's infiltrated. It's Israel that's infiltrated. It is South America that's infiltrated. So he's dealing with a lot of bad actors, a lot of monsters, a lot of snakes, a lot of vipers that you let them in and they will bite you, and then don't you know but he understands that they can bite. So, um, yeah, I right now at this point, even after listening to a big chunk of Candace Owens, I thought her arguments were very, very weak when it came to Trump. Very, very weak. So, yeah, I think it absolutely. I don't think it's about nuclear weapons. Okay, I will tell you that right now because I've kept in, you know, interest in Fukushima, of course, Chernobyl. Um, yeah, uh, New Mexico is the Trinity, right? That is, yeah. No, I don't think it's about nuclear weapons. I think that's always just like a false narrative, you know? And yeah, that's, and not that, you know, nuclear weapons don't exist or whatever. I do believe they exist in that, but I don't think this is about that. No, I think it is about power, and if you can get power over a country like the United States by bringing in, infiltrating and bringing in drugs that You could take over the whole country and enslave everybody, without having to even bomb anything. Um, yeah, look at what they did during COVID. So, and I'm absolutely, I do not know everything, right? I do not know everything. Disclaimer. It's just almost 6 years. I can give you what we've learned in these 6 years. That's what I can give you. And this is this is about infiltration and control and the occult, the occult way, the occult economy, the occult economy. So thank you so much. And it's a very big deal that John of God was sentenced today. I think he should have been sentenced to, you know, Texas has a death penalty, and I'm very grateful for that because these monsters, um, you don't want a leader that gets in there and say, "Oh, okay, I'll give you a pardon." You know, these monsters, what they did to the babies, to the children, to the women, um, and then promoting it like it's something good. The deception is also such a big crime, and we're under a lot of deception right now. So thank you for all your tips. Thank you for all your shares. And I will be back